Well, Macron's here for 3 days, and it feels like crunch time, doesn't it? A kind of make-or-break chance, a last chance to sort out the small boat crossings once and for all. Do you think they'll hack it?
No, I don't.
Really?
I don't. And because the idea that one comes in, we send one back, the problem is other countries are not keen on this idea, such as
Italy, Greece,
because they
Cyprus,
think it could mean they then go back to Italy and Greece, where they may have arrived in the first place, and they don't want the... So this is a problem.
The so-called ripple effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it really is in France's interest, actually, to get a deal, because if there is a deal, which means we send one in, one out, if there's a less of a pull to get... If you can't get to Britain and stay in Britain, stay in your B&B... surely fewer people will come to France in the first place.
We had a deal when we were in the European Union before Brexit, but leaving the European Union...
We are where we are.
Broke the deal. I'm just pointing this out.
Rubbish.
Normally on these state visits, it's kind of mood music. You know, you see the King. You have you'll speak in the Royal Gallery in the House of Lords, which could be quite embarrassing because there's Wellington at Waterloo, huge picture down one side.
They shielded de Gaulle from that in the 60s. And they wouldn't let him see it.
There's another of Nelson
having
beaten the French at Trafalgar down the other side. Absolutely enormous painting.
They are enormous.
You'll have to just look away.
They're as big as this studio. They're as big as this studio, the pictures. They are colossal.
It just makes me laugh when the French come and we're commemorating victories over France. But of course, the deal is unlikely to be finalised here. It's all about mood music, getting on better. But of course, the deal, the one in, one out, is those who have a legal right to be here. If they come across in a small boat and their case is looked at and they're found to have a legal right to be here because they fleeing persecution, they're judged to be asylum seekers, refugees, rather than migrants. They have family ties. And about just more than half of those who come over on those boats are found to have a legal right to be here, but we use the channel as a moat to try and stop people coming. So the idea is they will be allowed to say the one in, as it were, and the one out will be those who aren't found to have a legal right to be here, including people who have fled, say, Syria or somewhere.
Despite that analysis...
Or a country which has bad human rights,
what you're saying is that we remain completely impotent to deal with the problem.
No, it's not
Daily Mail's front page today, hand back our £771 million, Mr Macron, s'il vous plaît. We've, as you say, given the French a fortune to stop these crossings, and nothing's potentially really...
It's not completely impotent. Like, people are being deported in greater numbers now, for instance, going back to Vietnam.
And they're coming in greater numbers.
Yes. Sunak had the deal with Albania. There was 10 or 12,000 people came across, and Albania is a NATO country, so you can't really say you're fleeing persecution from there. And he did the deal, and they went back. But there is an issue of people trying to get into Britain because we closed down so many legal and safe routes. So they're paying, if it's £1,500 to get on a boat, risk their lives to do it, that's what they're doing.
So
we're not completely impudent, because people have been sent back when their cases are...
4%.
But people are still wanting to come. It's a backhand compliment people want to come.
Because we're a soft
But they still want to come. We're not soft.
We are a soft.
And there are more people who go to France. There are more people go to France than here.
Listen, if this one-for-one deal doesn't happen on this visit, what kind of deal would you suggest we go for?
They have to have a deal, I think, where the French go into the water, the police, and stop the boats. Now,
which they've started doing, because we saw French police using a knife to cut
But it's isolated.
the dinghy.
It's isolated. And apparently that particular boat was because they thought there was so many in the boat, it was going to sink.
Well, it was just before the steered visit, wasn't it? So it was quite... It was also, let's be honest...
BBC camera crew.
Let's be honest, it was handy propaganda for both sides.
And apparently the French police, the trade unions are very unhappy about this, who represent the French police, because they fear the French police will be exposed to harm from the migrants who'll fight back.
Well, you can see that...
So what is happening to the £771 million that the British government has given the French government? Where's it gone?
Must be nice redecorating the Élysée Palace.
It's
not stopping the migrants, that's for sure.
Well, we've seen increased patrols, but the issue has been that they have been driving up and down the beaches, but
Waving
not
Not
intervening.
intervening.
And then, as you say, perhaps just for optics, who knows? The French police have got more involved because they feel under more pressure.
There is a long coastline there.
Yes,
there is.
I mean, and there are lots of coves, and all you have to do is come with your boat, and everyone's on in half an hour, and you're out. If you stationed a copper every 100 metres, if you could afford it, then you might be able to stop the boats as soon.
So which is why the argument is you need a deterrent to stop people, because you can't stop people, every single boat physically leaving the French coast. You need a reason for them not to come.
That would be the deterrent, because suddenly they think... Because currently they assume if they get onto British soil, they stay. They stay, whether they've got a genuine case or not.
Andrew, you mentioned a figure. What is the figure of...
4%.
If once you've processed every single illegal migrants, because they're illegal when they're on a boat and they come over, once you've processed every single one of those illegal migrants' claims, how many
of those migrant
found
crossings, 4% have gone back.
Right, 4% have gone back.
Yeah.
So 96% of the illegal crossings
they're still,
are
still waiting to be...
asylum seekers.
A lot of them have disappeared. Some of them are still waiting to be processed.
The deterrence, if you're going to do it right, you can go... solve the problems in their source countries. Why are people leaving their countries? If it's poverty, drought, war, persecution, whatever.
Why are they leaving Vietnam?
Smash the gangs is a slogan, really, but it's also a policy. There have been some successes of disrupting supplies of boats and been imprisonments. That is a deterrent. But then it's when you come across, if you're dealt with quickly.
Yeah.
And but more than half are found to have a legal right to be here under the UN Refugee Convention. Now, France is, yes, a safe country, but unless we're going to want to leave UN conventions and start, just not abiding by any laws at all, you're allowed to go through a safe country to get to the safe country you want to. And a lot of them do have family ties.
So more than 50% have a legal right to be here.
Yeah.
4% get sent back. So there's a sort of 20, 30, 40%
at least
where they go missing.
Yeah.
And this is because there is a huge backlog in the system, because the last government used to just shout the R word in Africa. I know, you obviously I'm the only one who mentioned it. Lots of people mention it, but they used to just shout the R word instead of having a workable system. If you're picked up and you come, you've got to be assessed, processed quickly. And if you don't have a legal right to stay here, then where you can, you're returned. I mean, people like me don't really like to talk about deportation, but if you're going to have a workable borders policy, it has to be part of it.
That's the problem. If you don't have a workable borders policy and you continue not to have a workable borders policy, you end up with headlines like that on the front page of the Mail, and you end up with parties like Reform talking about, if they get into power, using the Royal Navy to actually stop these boats and turn them back. Now, you could say that's big talk, and when it came to it, it wouldn't happen. But nevertheless, that's being seriously proposed by a party that may end up being the largest party in the Commons in the next election.
Because Reform see this lot are worse than the last lot. There's even more people crossing the Channel than under the Tories, even more crossing. And the government looks impotent and hopeless, and Reform...
Which opens the door to extreme...
Well, I don't think... Is it extreme to say we want to stop people crossing the Channel in huge numbers? I don't think it's...
No, it's how you do it.
I think it's the Royal Navy gunboat tackling one of those floating boats and turning them back.
Britain wants this to stop.
If you want a mutiny in the Royal Navy, get them to have to take out boats and sink people and watch people drown. They won't do it, they're sailors. They want to rescue people at sea. They don't want to kill people at sea and drown.
The Royal Navy and RLI are acting like an Uber service for illegal migrants.
It's interesting.
Yes, they are.
They're rescuing
people. It's interesting that the French president is going to be meeting, obviously, the King and the Prime Minister, but also the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, and Sir Ed Davey in a series of talks, not Nigel Farage. So he's not interested in Nigel Farage.
Who might be the next... Well, because he won't be around if Nigel Farage is our next Prime Minister.
But he's not interested in any political talks, apparently.
Exactly.
It's because he's only got 5 MPs. In fact, actually, he's down to 4 again, hasn't he? Because the guy in Essex has had to resign the whip because over COVID loans, £70,000 of COVID loans to companies that had no employees.
Reform got more votes than the Lib Dems, and he's going to see the leader of the Lib Dems, but Reform got more votes at the election, not as many.
But I doubt that the French president does it on polling numbers.
No, but But he knows exactly who Nigel Farage is.
Yeah, but he's not interested in having a chat with him.
Well, the other thing is Farage...
Doesn't take his ideas seriously, presumably.
Farage has got the hump, as he always gets the hump.
Well, it's
very thin-skinned.
It's Richard Tice who's got annoyed about it. This is an outrageous and deliberate snub. By denying Nigel a meeting with Macron, the establishment is shutting its eyes to the lights of the reform train that is coming.
Well, it does play into his hands, doesn't it?
Tice is the bust-up blood vessel of British politics. He's permanently angry.
Okay. You can huff and puff. It's a gift for reform. They'll say, you see, they're not interested in talking to us because we may be the only party that has a solution.
Don't you think that the French president is interested in solutions?
No. I think he's interested in taking our money. I think he wants to get all those migrants out of France into Britain. That's what I think.
There's all that money given by your government, by the way.
Yeah.
But look,
that's what I think
it is the number of MPs. Is he seeing the SNP? They've got more MPs than Reform. I don't think he's seeing them.
He might be, I'm not sure.
OK, so that is a big issue, obviously. I thought it was very interesting, the headline on the Daily Telegraph, "No borders between us," the King to tell Macron. I mean, that's going to come as no surprise to anyone who goes, there's clearly no borders between us, because, of course, all the people are getting into boats and crossing over the channel.
It's called the Channel.
You try to go on holiday in France without your passport, I think you'll find there is a border. I mean, you've got to have your passport stamped now. Since Brexit.
I'm not sure that message works for anyone.
I think he just means we're mates, and he'll use a bit of his schoolboy French.
Very strong language that was embargoed until the small hours this morning from the Children's Commissioner, Rachel D'Souza, who will be coming on the programme in about half an hour. Very strong language, basically saying that children living in poverty in this country today, in 2025, are living in conditions which she compares directly with the way Dickens used to write about child poverty. Rats, mould on the walls, no heating, terrible mouldy food.
Has she got evidence for this?
Pardon?
Has she?
Yeah, she has.
She claims to have that evidence. We'll be asking her to produce it when she comes on. But, she's not mincing her words.
No.
And it's quite something, isn't it, to compare 21st century childhood to the way Dickens wrote about it.
It's a report based on interviews and focus groups with 128 children aged between 6 and 18, talking about a representative sample, living in overcrowded, unsafe housing, not having enough to eat, and the system failing. The system's so muddled, said one teenager, it makes you feel greedy for even wanting anything, even though it's our right. We didn't choose to be poor. The trouble is about this, obviously, Keir Starmer under pressure to lift the two-child benefit cap from his own backbench MPs, and maybe many people who voted Labour in the election. But already viewers are getting in touch to say, we spend millions on asylum hotels and not processing timely returns for asylum seekers, many of whom, as you've pointed out, go missing and are then supported, while our children are going hungry, do not have enough water, or, do not have safe conditions to thrive in this country. And people will make that link, won't they?
Again and again.
That will be exploited as well, politically.
It will. And this government, she wants the cap lifted, which will cost, I think, just under £4 billion. Look, they've just lost £5 billion of disability benefit cuts. They've lost, £1.5 billion because of going to restore the winter fuel. There ain't no money for this, but this is going to be another major Labour rebellion.
But children being in poverty, and I think if you lifted the two-child benefit cap, you would rescue at least 250,000
I think it's 500,000, actually.
Half a million, right, from poverty.
Is it 3.4 million kids, something like 1 in 3 considered to be living in poverty, and it's a national scandal. I just point out, kids were living in poverty when we didn't have migrants in hotels. So I think it's unfair of those people who say, oh, look at that. I mean, we've got to deal with the problem.
Government's about priorities.
Yeah, we've got to deal with the problem. But kids were living in poverty and suffering,
Kevin, suffering
when we weren't spending any money on that.
We're spending about £4 billion a year on migrant hotels. Lifting the cap on child benefit is about £3.5 billion.
But don't just blame people with a different coloured skin who have come from a different country for kids being in poverty in Britain today. It's not. This has been... the last Labour government had some success in reducing poverty, didn't abolish it at all. The numbers went up in the last government. The two-child benefit cap is the single policy you could change that would lift the most number of kids out
you
of
have
poverty.
to get the money to pay for it.
You do. Well, it's where we join all the dots.
And Susanna's absolutely right. If you listen to these messages that have come in the last 5 minutes, Mo, via email, child poverty could be settled in this country in 1 second. Stop sending money abroad. Stop paying for illegals to stay in our country. Deport foreign criminals. Put our kiddies first, please. That is the authentic voice
and
of
also,
the people.
This government has also made a decision to spend billions more every year on defence. Which, again, you could argue could be spent on child poverty because, often when they spend this money on defence, it's wasted. It's wasted because it's badly spent.
Can I just say also...
This is the government's priority. They've made their bed and they're going to lie.
About half the international development money that's left now is being cut twice by, first of all, the Conservatives, then Labour. About half of it is actually paying the bills in hotels and for migrants. We're spending it here. We're not actually spending it abroad. But it's a national scandal. It's where you have to join up all the dots when we talk about wealth taxes or other taxes going up. It's what you spend them on. I think coming down the line, I think the increase in defence spending is going to be a terrible waste of cash. That won't make us any more secure. And you're right. As Nye Bevan, founder of the NHS, socialism is the language of priorities. You have to decide what you're going to do. And I think reducing child poverty, obliterating child poverty should be one of the key missions, milestones, call it what you like, of this government.
I think a lot of people watching also will think, if you can't afford to have 3 or 4 kids, don't have 3 or 4 kids.
Although apparently there is no evidence that the 2-child benefit cap actually stops people having children because people don't often think like that.
And I wonder if
get pregnant accidentally or can't get access to...
I don't mind lecturing, hectoring, pointing the finger at the parents, but you're talking about kids here.
Yeah.
And you're going to blight their lives, and we will pay down the line because those kids will not do as well at school, so they will not go out and earn as much and pay back through the tax system as they go on. And some of the people, as you say, do say, if you can't afford to have kids, don't have kids. I just wonder if they're claiming their child benefit as they say that. Maybe their kids are going to school without being charged directly to go to that school.
Well,
maybe their kids have been using the NHS, so they're getting support too. Yeah.
Well, one potential money...
And so they should.
One potential money pot, rather, might be a wealth tax. Now, Neil Kinnock suggested that a couple of days ago. It's still very much floating around on the agenda this morning. Number 10 of the Treasury yesterday have refused to rule out a wealth tax. On the other side of the argument, tax experts, very prominent guy in this country called Dan Needle, says that's just fantasy politics. Wealth taxes, however attractive they may seem on the surface, never actually deliver serious amounts of money. What do we think?
Well, I think they might do it because I think it's popular. Whether it brings in any money, it's another matter. But
certainly popular with the backbenchers.
It would be very popular with the backbenchers.
I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they're bold and brave enough to do it. To be quite honest, I'd like to see a form.
Do you think it would work if they were bold?
But there is evidence.
I think it can work, yes, because not everyone can flee abroad. I mean, I think there's a huge scandal at the moment. People using trusts to dodge tax and so on. It's a complete scandal. You've got enough money, you can use legal ways without paying your fair dues.
The sort of people they're going to target who have got assets of more than 10 million are very clever accountants. They'll get round it.
Well, this guy, Dan Needle, this tax expert in this country, and he is respected. He cited Spain. He says Spain has got a wealth tax, and it raised just 632 million, not billion, 632 million euros from its wealth tax in 2023, which is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, it is. And how many very wealthy people left the country as a result of that tax?
Well, 17,000 billionaires.
And a lot of those
people
in the last great jobs and are important.
Go on, they're making money here. They can pay up.
They do pay. They pay.
Well, meanwhile, the Tories have used AI to scare everybody about taxes that might be on the horizon. Let's have a look at their latest social media advert. Do you recognise this individual? Let's have a look. That apparently is Rachel Reeves.
Oh, dear.
Taxes are coming.
Looks like Ozzy Osbourne.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
Black Sabbath are coming for you.
I think they should have said higher taxes are coming because we've always been taxed.
Yeah.
It's not even accurate.
More taxes.
I mean, we're always being taxed.
Yeah, that hasn't quite worked.
No, I think another fail, I think that.
Right, let's talk about this absolutely jaw-dropping news yesterday. The FBI has decided there was no client list of Jeffrey Epstein's and no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. They did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against any so far uncharged third parties. So currently the only person paying the price for Jeffrey Epstein's crimes is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, he's in prison for a very long time.
Exactly. And Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of people were suspicious about the fact he may have been murdered.
Yeah.
They say that there's no evidence for that either. He definitely committed suicide.
But she went to prison for trafficking
Yes.
young girls.
Yep.
It's his various properties around the world.
But we know that Jeffrey Epstein was not alone.
Exactly.
And the evidence against her was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Of course, this is wonderful news for Prince Andrew.
Yeah, yeah.
This lets him completely off the hook. We've had many conversations.
You can go to Disneyland now, can't he? You can go to Disneyland.
That's exactly the point. He can now go to America without fear of being arrested the moment the plane lands by the FBI.
And yet the FBI said earlier that he had failed to give any cooperation whatsoever, something he rejected and denied. But he is now effectively a free man.
Let's get this. So, Elon Musk says Donald Trump was very close to Jeffrey Epstein. He later retracts it, but it sends Trump bananas. And then the FBI, which has a director appointed by Trump, all of a sudden stops the probe into Epstein. We can see with Mohammed Fayed at Harrods, he had a network of people who were helping him to get those women he was raping, whether it was security or other staff. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell didn't just do this on their own.
No.
Now, OK, she's in prison, he's dead, but there'll be a lot of people around them who were working with them. And now, today, there'll be hundreds, possibly, of very powerful, influential, rich men who will be breathing a huge sigh of relief.
Legally, this leaves Prince Andrew completely in the clear, but it doesn't alter the fact that in January 2020, Jeffrey Berman, he was the US Attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced publicly that the FBI and US prosecutors had repeatedly asked to interview the Duke about Epstein, but had received, and I quote him, zero cooperation. So reputationally, where does this leave Prince Andrew?
Well, you also remember he paid Virginia Giuffre, who recently took her own life, millions. Was it 10 or 12 million?
We think it was 12.
Reputedly up to $12 million.
For a woman he claims he doesn't remember meeting.
To keep a sex case out of court.
Yeah.
No, like if
his supporters would say he did it to protect the late Queen from embarrassment.
If Charlie Boy thinks he can rehabilitate his brother and put him on the balcony, it would be utter madness. As a Republican, I would actually welcome it because it would shake the monarchy, the hereditary monarchy, and all this nonsense to its very foundations.
Andrew may think he can come back. There's no coming back for him.
Well, you have to say Andrew has consistently denied all allegations of propriety.
But why hand over 12 million quid?
But you are still left with those famous pictures of him peeking out from the front door of Epstein's mansion in New York, the pictures of him walking with Epstein after Epstein had been convicted for paedophile offences. You mentioned the settlement that he made with Virginia, the late Virginia. All of those things do leave a reputational problem. No question.
And his picture of his hand round her waist with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is now in prison.
Well, yes, but he says that photograph may have been
He says
faked.
it stopped it.
There's no evidence for that at all.
The famous, infamous, notorious Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis. He condemned himself from his own mouth.
So legally in the clear, but still in the dark
I think
in terms of reputation.
We're not seeing much of him.
But there will be a lot of very powerful, influential, wealthy men breathing a huge sigh of relief. And that's going to be terrible because there's going to be justice denied to... Well, Virginia Giuffre, sadly, is now dead, but there are other women who will not see justice as a result.
As we say, he denies the allegations and the FBI says... Case closed.
Yeah, amazing.
Right, before we let you go, your mobile phone on Sunday the 7th of September will be tested with an emergency alert. And if you're at the theatre or in the cinema or at a meditation retreat, you need to put it on silent.
He found you one of those.
Down the pub.
At 3 p.m.
What date is that?
Sunday the 7th of September at 3 p.m. Well, you say it's a pain, but if we ever have an emergency, Richard, you'll be very grateful for emergency alerts. It's only the second of its kind. 87 million mobile devices will ring out unprompted.
What kind of emergency are we talking about?
So it has been used... it's been used on several occasions to warn of adverse weather events, and in one case last year when an unexploded Second World War bomb was due to be moved by the military.
OK.
And I think that's been in local areas.
Yeah,
this is going to be a national thing. Do we have the sound, Sam? Do we have the emergency alert? Right, you have to imagine a loud siren for roughly 10 seconds.
Wait. Can you make a loud siren? Come on.
Beep, beep, beep.
There
we go. I'm available for hire if they need me to do the warning.
I think they should get Corporal Jones's tagline, don't panic.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens if your phone is off? Will it still ring?
OK, if it's set to... I hate to say this, but if you are in the theatre and you've set it to silent, it will still go off.
So you have to physically switch it off.
Switch it off.
You have to physically switch it off.
OK.
The government's testing the system to ensure it works optimally and the public become familiar with the alerts.
Right.
As we know, it's a dangerous world out there.
It's going to cause a lot of false alarms.
You're all going to die in 5 minutes and then you're going to war. Well, that's great, isn't it? Thank you very much.
We will send an alert.
Thanks for that cheery note.
We will send an alert to your phones at about 25, 22, 9. You can go get it.
Yeah,
Tell us what you thought of the show.